Hey there, friends. It's me again. It's Carpo. And I'm doing this video to raise environmental awareness for the Western spotted thinker. You don't see too many of them anymore. They tend to be found clustered and isolated in small groups. They generally don't show themselves very often because thinking has become something that we look down on and frown upon. Research has become, you know, speculative. We live in an age of literally alternative facts, as has come right out of the White House itself at one time. I'll never forget that. Alternative facts. And that just stuck. It's just part of our life now. It's just where we're at. And regardless of where you stand on the political spectrum, it's very difficult not to talk about these topics because, whether you think we're going a good direction, a bad direction, or we're in full collapse, none of it really matters in the big picture, whether we're right or wrong, which side we've taken. The most important thing is life, right? And so within that life, we have to interact with other people. And therefore, we can isolate ourselves within certain friend groups or, try to escape discussion, conflict. As the holidays are coming up, I'm sure there will be plenty of political discussions where people flip the turkey off the table and go running and screaming. That's just how it is, but it's never been as bad as it is today. But I think that we've reached kind of a crescendo, and I'm hoping that things from here on will ease back. In certain ways, a lot of Americans have realized that we actually all have a common enemy again. Because as much as I hate to say that, we've had common enemies in the past, like after 9/11, even though it was the wrong enemy. But, in the big picture, the big problem we have are people pulling the strings, setting up fake events, false flag attacks, whether it's a bombing or a shooting or an attack on something or someone. There is one particular country that we've always called our ally, which Americans have finally found out is not our ally after all, that they've stolen from us, they've cheated us, they've harmed our military, our people. Yes, we know what country I'm talking about, and I won't even say the word because it just gets thrown through the algorithm, and now that they're buying up TikTok, that'll tell you who I'm talking about, and everything else. It's just a weird time to be alive. So all Americans should be able to come together over this realization that people we thought were our friends aren't our friends. A lot of us already knew this. Like, I've been talking about this for a while now. I'm no expert on the Middle East, but it's something I've been fascinated with for years. And I'd hear these stories about these 3,000-year-old, battles. Then I go back and look for evidence, and there's none. You know, I find out that, centuries back, there were actually, Jews, Christians, and Muslims all living on the same churches, on the same streets in the Middle East. Like, the reason there's so much division is because it's pushed by those who want more power and control. And at this point, the largest lobbying group in the world is the Real Estate Association. It's no joke. I didn't even know that until recently, actually. I knew that there were big lobbying groups. The biggest one is Real Estate. And boy, they are really loving what's going on in the Middle East right now because there's some great development and ports available there. So let's move past that because I don't want to talk about world issues so much as local issues in America. And I don't want to get off track because this is very important to me. I have at least two. I was thinking if there's more. I don't think I know more than two. Two Trump supporters that are close friends, okay? And I also have a couple of close friends who are like Biden supporters, or, left all the way, blue no matter who kind of thing. And it's fascinating because we've had, between like four of us, we've had at least we've had these group texts. They went on for a while, then things would get too heated, and somebody would back out or say something harsh or take it personal. It's just how it goes, right? But what I learned was that, you need to, well, you need to preserve the relationships you have, obviously, and you don't want to lose those people that you've been close to. I like these good friends I've known for 30 years. I mean, there's no way in hell I'm just going to ditch them over who's president. That's ridiculous. However, one of my other friends, who is a Trump supporter, he had lost a friend who he hasn't talked to in like years because they got into an argument about politics during the last administration of Trump, and the dude wouldn't talk to him anymore. And I've it's funny, I've seen a lot of people who are like this on the left, who are like, oh no, Trump supporters have destroyed this country and I'll never talk to them, I'll never interact with one of them again. It's very juvenile, and it's a pathetic response, just as pathetic as those who think that everybody, liberals are the whole problem in our country. Like, we have so many different viewpoints and we try to simplify and generalize. And that's why I wonder why thinking and reasoning is in such short supply in the modern West at a time when we need it more than ever. If you go back in time and do a little bit of historic research on philosophers, you'll understand everything that's going on as far as how people behave, personality types, why we act the way we do. These archetypes. I would say archetypes and allegories. My opinion off the top of my head, if you want to better understand what's happening with these characters in society, look to Joseph Campbell, because he described it the best in the 20th century. And I think he wrote a book called Archetypes or something to that effect. He wrote a lot of books. I have one of his, it's like Myths and Legends or something, but the idea of archetypes are, I'm sure most of you know, but, the king, the fool, the liar, but there's also like not necessarily personal archetypes. I highly recommend looking into the work to understand how different personality types reveal so much more than we can see, offhand. And the more we see these things, we start to see them reflected in other people. We understand that we're all playing a part. We're all playing a role. And sometimes these roles are reversed. And that we're not always the wise man. Sometimes we're the fool, And once we recognize that, we can get past kind of our ego complex of thinking that our way of thinking is correct, that we know what's best for everyone, because nobody does. We know that. There are so many different ways of living, and so this idea of complete freedom for the individual to choose how they want to live their life, what they want to think to be important. We can disagree with one another, but that shall not be invaded by anyone else's laws, regulations, rules. This is why we have, the First Amendment in this country, and I thank God for it. I'm very grateful to have that freedom of speech, which also allows for freedom of press, freedom of expression, and that there aren't limits to that other than what we deem to be dangerous or harmful to other humans, which is only to be expected. And yeah, one could say, well, hate speech is kind of changing, and yes, that's correct. You would be correct, because apparently now criticizing the government or capitalism could be deemed terrorist or hate speech. I'm trying to figure this all out, but this just sounds like a lot of blustering and big bullshit talk. But I'm seeing a quick decline of thinking, a quick decline of reasoning, and I've really tried to figure out the solution, because we all have to live our lives still, no matter how good or bad things get, right? We still have to get up, take a shit, and go to work. And I'd like to know that the people in my life that I know, I'm not going to despise just because we disagree on a particular topic. Because ultimately, my view is that none of the politicians care about us. And at least what I mean is, I'm not saying no politicians care about the people. I know people have good intentions when they start. But by the time somebody's in office, the people who really pull the strings, call them deep state, call them whatever you will. They're also the corporate masters and the ones who fund, elections. Long ago, when I looked it up, I wanted to see who was funding Obama and John McCain during their election, and the top donor was Goldman Sachs to both of them by far. And I was like, okay, that's what I thought. Everybody answers to some master, right? And it's just, you just got to live with it. You just got to live with it. But what I don't understand is why more people in the West don't educate themselves and know these things and come together as like working class solidarity, which is something we've been lacking severely for so long. Hopefully that changes. We've allowed union busting, now we're allowing our freedom of speech to be curtailed in certain ways. And this isn't just recent, this has been ongoing for a long time. Even the last administration, when they asked basically YouTube and other platforms and Facebook to censor certain speech about a particular pandemic, it was pretty wild. And even today, this is, of course, I've known this for a long time, being on YouTube for 12, 13 years. At the beginning, it was like the Wild West. I could say anything I wanted. I could show you all kinds of drugs and, smoke weed on camera, no problem. And then all of a sudden, it started becoming a little more, they started, cracking down and deleting videos. Then they'd give me strikes on my channel for a video that was 5 years old I forgot I even had. So I had to go through and cleanse my whole channel of anything that was controversial. That's back then I was talking about kratom, everything else. And yeah, the censorship thing just goes above and beyond whoever's president, whoever's in office. It's been ongoing for a long time, but there's always somebody who wants to control the narrative, right? And the internet's getting to the point now where it's very hard to know what's even true and what you're not seeing. When you Google something or look it up on DuckDuckGo, Firefox, whatever you may be using, it's all the same shit. Are you getting the answers that you really need? Anyway, so I'm too many thoughts on my head. I'll just leave it at that, and I'll talk to y'all next time. Just if there were a message I could, a paragraph to kind of sum this up. We all have different political views. We all have different ideas about what's right and wrong, but I think that most of us can come together on the fact that the freedom of speech is important, rights of the individual, due process, all these things. And the working class solidarity should go above and beyond politics. But if you so disagree with people around you that you completely disagree on the value of people, like me, and maybe you just despise a guy like Trump. To me, he's a failed businessman, 6 bankruptcies, remarried, the whole, several felonies, the idea that he won't release this file that everybody wants. There's a lot of things I don't like about Trump. I could go on and on, but arguing about that with people who are Trump supporters goes nowhere. You get nothing out of it because you're just accused of being you just hate the guy no matter what, which actually isn't true, because some of the stuff he's done could be good for the country, certain things, but that's not the point. The point is that overall the guy's a dirtbag, and I think he only has personal interests, and that shouldn't be controversial, but it is. People get really upset when you say that, but honestly, the government shut down right now, and some employees aren't even going to get back pay. They're not getting paid right now, a lot of them. And from what I understand, there's speculation that it's because the Democrats have 224, or not the Democrats, but I guess the Republicans have said that there's 224 people who are ready to vote to release the Epstein files. I don't know how much of this is true, but that, once Congress is back in and everybody's back to work, then they're going to have to go through with this and release these files. And to a lot of folks, they've been convinced that these don't matter. But I'm going to tell you something. In my opinion, in my entire life, how I have paid attention to any of the political controversies, this is the biggest one, by far. War is horrendous, and it definitely is up there. But the fact of, the leader, rather representative of the free world, the most powerful man in the world, claiming that they have evidence and files relating to some of the most powerful people in the world who are tied to this guy. Then there was speculation, and some FBI people came out and said that they'd been told to redact his name from them. So we figured they'd come out redacted. But then they didn't release any of them and said that they were all a hoax. This is mind-blowing how many Americans just go along with it and say, oh yeah, it's just some big game of chess, 4D chess or something. Like, no. They're scared. And I don't think it's just because of him. I think it's because there are many, many powerful people on there. But also, let's look to that country I mentioned earlier, the one that starts with an I and ends with an L. That is basically a pariah state at this point. They've completely annihilated a peoples, and they've bombed like 7 countries in the last year, different countries. So yeah, there's a lot going on in the world, and I hope we're not leading to. I feel like we're already in World War III. It's just that we haven't really labeled it or named it yet. So we'll see what happens. But when the big picture of the world and all the shit that's going on out there, and the potential for chaos in the future, whether it be war, famine, disease, an asteroid, we don't know. But to argue about who's president isn't probably the best use of our time. I think it's better that we come together on the things that we do agree with. Like, there are other countries trying to run the narrative on American people, and we should be smarter than that. So I'm looking to you people to be smarter than that. All of us to be smarter than that. And I will see you on the flip side. When there's a revolution someday, maybe we'll all be there and we'll meet up. Or maybe not. Take care.